Welcome back to Scrap Radio on BGPN.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton, episode 141. We got a good lineup here ahead of the UFC Fight Night card back from the Apex this weekend. We're first going to be joined by one half of the main event, Grant Dawson, to preview his UFC Vegas 80 fight against Bobby Green. Good chat with Grant, as always, kind of just talk about how this fight came together, not having a ton of notice for this one, and whether or not he was surprised to not be getting a ranked guy and what he thinks a win here does for him. But good chat with Grant as always. And then we're going to be joined by Alex Morono to preview his fight against Joaquin Buckley. This should be a very fun fight. Alex is down to fight anyone, but he does get a bit excited fighting a guy like Joaquin with that knockout power and should want to keep it standing, which is what Alex likes to do. But really good chat with Alex, who's kind of ready to fight all these newcomers. He fought a lot of those veterans. He said he's excited by the challenges fighting these young up-and-coming guys, and he actually pointed out a few names. We're then going to be joined by Ricky Glenn to preview his fight against Drew Dober. Good chat with Ricky as always. He's coming off that disappointing knockout loss back in April to Christos Giagos. It was his first fight since that draw against Grant Dawson in 2021. Before that, and then in that fight against Giagos, he just didn't feel like himself. A year and a half off or whatever. He just felt like he just really couldn't get going. Credit to Christos, he came right at him and he just didn't let him get his feet wet. But he thinks just fighting again, he'll have a much better performance here. And then we close things out talking to Chris Gutierrez to preview his fight against Montel Jackson. Obviously lost to Pedro Martinez in April, bit of a snap that nice streak he was on, and he's fighting a guy in Montel who's not a lot of bandwidths want to fight, but very dangerous guy. Chris, really looking forward to this one, but be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by UFC lightweight Grant Dawson, who's got his first UFC main event. Grant, how's it going, man?
It's going, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Like when we're doing this, we're like 10 days out from your main event. Like came together pretty quickly. Like, did you know you're gonna be fighting, or like do they just kind of have to get a main event and you kind of offered to step in? Like, how did it kind of all come together?
There was like a three-way tie between me, Bobby Green, and Jalen Turner, and I think that it was supposed to be me and Jalen Turner. I'm assuming that Jalen couldn't make the weight on short notice, and so they handed it down to me and Bobby Green. I'm super happy about the matchup. I'm super excited. I think both Jalen Turner and Bobby Green bring something unique to the table, of value, I should say, to me. Jalen Turner's a ranked opponent, but Bobby Green is a much more popular, a much more veteran opponent.
I know when we talked after your last fight, you said you wanted the winner of Hooker, Jalen Turner. Then obviously Hooker breaks his arm or his hand, whatever it was. Like after that, like did you just kind of have to pivot and start thinking of other opponents then?
Yeah, it was kind of the situation where I was not told, but it was very strongly implied that my next opponent would be the winner of that fight. And Hooker won, but was out for a while. And I told them, hey, I can't wait that long. I need to fight this year again. It sounds like Hooker's actually back ahead of schedule. So if I win on against Bobby Green, I think that me and Hooker are going to be the next to go.
And then I know you've said in the past, like aren't going to take one of these short notice fights unless you're 100% sure on your weight. So like, was that a concern for you, or like, is it all good for you?
It worked out perfectly because one, it was 5 weeks, which I don't really consider short notice. When I was talking about short notice, I meant anything really under 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I was helping Thiago Moises in his camp, so I was already in really good shape. The weight was pretty low already, just because I was training twice a day, and it all kind of worked out perfectly. I got back from Paris, felt great, took a couple of days off, got this message, jumped right into camp. Everything's been awesome.
And then your 10th UFC fight as well for this one. Like, what's it like to get that double-digit mark now in the UFC?
Yeah, it's good.
Don't really care too much about it. Like,
I'm here to be a world champion, man. Anything under world champion doesn't get me excited. So you could tell me that, I'm about to break a record. I have broken a record in the UFC, but it doesn't really mean anything to me unless I can get that belt.
does the main event like add anything? Like, is that special? Or is it just like kind of another fight then to you?
The only thing that is special about the main event is I get to prove to myself that I can fight for 5 rounds. Anytime you have somebody that says they want to be a champion, the first thing you got to ask is, can they go 5 rounds?
Are you surprised you're getting main event, or did you kind of think you'd be kind of in the running for one of these pretty soon?
I'm not surprised that I got a main event. I am surprised who I got the main event against. I figured my first main event was going to be against somebody that somebody really, really dangerous that nobody wanted to fight. and they had to bribe me with lots of money to take it. I got on short notice, and it turned out it was me and Bobby Green. I'm not looking past Bobby Green at all. I'm just saying he's not quite as dangerous as some of these other guys. He's a very skilled fighter. He's a very talented fighter, but he's just not a fighter that's going to flash KO, knock you out, and on the drop of a button. So I'm really glad that my first main event is against somebody that is going to stick around. We're probably going to go at least into the later rounds. I hope not, but we probably will go into the later rounds. And so this is something that I get to prove to the UFC, that you can put me in title fights and I'm not going to fade.
What have you kind of made of Bobby's last couple fights? Like, it's been like kind of a win one, lose one for him, but you kind of look at who he's fighting. Like, he's fighting a lot of high level guys. Like, what he kind of made of his last couple fights?
Yeah, I thought he's looked really good, honestly. I think that 3 of his best wins, 2 out of 3 of those he lost. He looked really, really good against my buddy Drew Dober. Was killing. Let's be honest, he was destroying Drew, just touching him, and Drew knocked him out, which is always a possibility with Drew Dober. And then he fought Rafael Fiziev, and honestly, looked, other than Gaethje and Gamrot, looked amazing against Fiziev. Arguably could have won the fight. It was a very close decision. So I know how good he is. I know how dangerous this fight could be. And more importantly, I know that even if I win, I could look really bad doing it. And so it's my job to go in there and make sure I get the win and I look good doing it.
I know when we've talked to in the past, you've really wanted that next fight to be in front of fans. So you've been at the Apex for a while. Like, was that a bit of a bummer? Is it just at the Apex, or is it a bit of a trade-off then that it is a main event and a guy like Bobby?
Man, I just go ahead and call me the Apex Predator, because I'll do all my fights at the Apex. It's fine. I want to be champion of the world, not champion of the Apex. I got to be able to fight everywhere. And if that means that I have to do these fight in the Apex, that's fine. If I have to fly to Paris to do these, that's fine. Champion of the world means anywhere.
Do you think going into this fight, like, a lot of people will just have like a common like thing of just like, oh, if the later goes, better it is for Bobby, because like he's kind of been known for his cardio, and like that Ricky Glenn fight people always point to for you for some reason, even though it was one fight. Like, is that something like you're kind of excited to prove wrong? Is like you can go the hard 25 minutes?
Man, not really. I don't got to prove anything to anybody except myself and the UFC. So the UFC seems to be very, very happy with me. They're paying me extremely well. They gave me exactly what I've asked for every single time. They're happy. I'm happy. I couldn't give a shit less what other people who don't step in the cage think. If Bobby thinks that I'm gonna fade in the later rounds, I hope that's what he's thinking, because he is in for a very, very bad surprise. The Ricky Glenn fight, I am so happy that fight happened. I can't put my finger on what actually happened that night, but something happened, and it was what got me to make the change to move to ATT. It was a blessing in disguise. I don't care if I'll be a world champion, beat Islam twice, and they'll still be like, yeah, but he went to a draw with Ricky Glenn, So I don't give a shit.
I know you work with Thiago a lot. Obviously, he had his fight a couple weeks ago. So, like, who are kind of them? I don't know if he's back in the gym. So, like, who are kind of the main guys you're working with the last kind of stretch you've done?
I mean, I've worked with a bunch of guys at ATT, but the main guys that I've been working with, the main 3 guys are Chris Duncan, my buddy Dakota Bush, and my buddy Nate. And I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Nate is a really, really good look for Bobby Green. He's an up and comer, been doing boxing and Muay Thai his entire life. Southpaw kid, really. I mean, honestly, he looks more like Bobby than Bobby does. So I think we got lucky in the aspect that we have a training partner that could mimic Bobby Green so well.
You fought a lot of these like high level grapplers or like wrestlers. Do you think Bobby's the best striker you've probably faced so far?
I don't want to say that he's the best striker. I do want to say that he is the most unique striker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the best striker I fought was Damir Ismagulov. But Bobby, like it's apples to oranges. Like, they're both fruit, but they're both completely different fruit, right? If you asked me for an apple and I brought you an orange, you'd be pretty pissed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that who's the better striker. It's who can win in a fight. I think that Bobby would give Damir a lot of problems on the feet. And I honestly don't even know who would win that fight. That's a very fun fight to me.
And Bobby's kind of the king of that like shoulder roll with his defense. Like, how do you kind of deal with that and like get ready to deal with that?
So there's a couple of things. One, I've been dealing with that style for a very long time. When I used to train at Glory MMA and Fitness, a lot of those guys like the shoulder roll, the one hand, the
Mhm.
look away. It was a style that I'm very familiar with because I trained with that type of style for so long. So I do feel like I know how to beat it. And then on the other hand, there's no shoulder rolls when you get taken down. So we all know what Bobby's going to try to do. He's going to come out and try to knock me out, and we all know what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to take him down and submit him or ground and pound him. So it's really just about who can play their game better. And I don't think I think that Bobby is giving me a lot of respect, and I appreciate that. But I don't think he understands how smart and intelligent of a fighter I am.
Mhm.
Smart and intelligent everywhere else, absolutely not. But when it comes to fighting, I am a very, very intelligent fighter, even if it doesn't look like it in the cage.
How much do you look at Islam's fight against Bobby? I know it was obviously short to kind of see what Islam did to get him down, or do you just think you guys are totally different kind of styles that doesn't really play much of a role?
I wouldn't say that. Look, Islam Makhachev took probably one of the worst shots I've ever seen at a high level wrestler take. He didn't respect Bobby in the slightest. And I'm going to be honest, I think that Bobby made some mistakes in that fight. I think he could have looked a little bit better if he had had a full camp, not a full camp, but like I'm expecting a much better Bobby Green than fought Islam Makhachev. Like he's had a little bit of time to prepare for me, and dude, Islam, like go watch the fight again. It's almost comical how he took Bobby down. He like did a jumping kick punch into a standing body lock and just kind of muscled him down. Um, that's not my style. I'm gonna take good shots. I'm gonna set up my shots, and then once I get to the ground, that's when we get to see how similar me and Islam are.
How do you kind of see it playing out? Like, I think to a lot of fans, it's pretty. They just kind of view it as long as it stays on the feet. Bobby's probably, that's what Bobby wants. So you obviously want to get down to the ground. But I do think like people overlook your striking a lot in this fight. Like, I don't like. I feel like everyone just kind of thinks like you have to get it down to the ground to win. So like, how do you kind of see it playing out though?
I mean, they're right. I do have to get it down to the ground, but it's for different reasons. These people don't understand is like I fight the way that I fight. One, because it's longevity of the sport.
Hmm.
Two, it's the hardest thing to do in MMA. And three, like anytime you're striking, most of the time it's opinionary who's winning. When you're grappling, it's not opinionary. Everybody knows who's winning when it's in a grappling situation. It's just safer to grapple. It's safer for my long-term health. It's safer for the judges if it does go to the judges. And I don't have a lot of natural God-given power. I don't think Bobby does either. I mean, I'm sure he hits a little bit harder than I do, but we aren't guys that are going to do one shot, knockout, dead, headshot, bang type of guys,
Hmm.
you know. So anytime that I'm in a striking exchange, I feel like I'm a step behind just because there's not as much power there. Also, anytime you're in those kind of situations, you know, an exchange happens and the judges it's opinionary on who won that exchange. When there's a grappling exchange, you know who won, who's
Hmm.
on top, who's on the back, who's hitting, you know, ground and pound, who got the takedown. Anytime there's an exchange like that, it is night and day difference on who actually is winning.
And you guys are so quick. And like when you guys start throwing combos, like it's hard to really know, like tell if those landed cleanly or not. And then you just kind of, like as you said, you're just kind of guessing on if, oh, maybe that did land cleanly, but like you're obviously in there and no, it didn't. It's like, I guess that is like a very fair point of why you go down to wrestling so much.
Well, and too, it's like that shoulder roll. My old coach, James, used to lose a lot of fights because he would shoulder roll in the pocket and it would look like he's getting hit, but he wasn't getting hit clean. But it still looks like you're getting hit. You know, 90% of fighting is not getting hit, but the other 10% you got to make it known that you didn't get hit, you know, because if people think you got hit, now it's opinionary on who wins. And that's why striking is so dangerous when it comes to judges, you know. It's very rare to see judges screw it up in
Hmm.
a grappling exchange. You know, if you have two guys that are really heavy into grappling, usually, you know, the person who wins, everybody's like, okay, yeah, obviously. that guy won. But the decisions where people are like, what the hell? What was that? What are those judges? They're almost always striking decisions.
And do you put any pressure to like get a finish here? Is it more just like get a win and like kind of just prove everyone that you're still this like top 10 guy?
No, man. Look, I've been going through this kind of phase where I've been telling myself, because the biggest slogan that you see right now in MMA is don't put pressure on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's ridiculous. I think that is the most idiotic thing anybody's ever said to me when it comes to this. We are fist fighting people. You don't think that there's going to be pressure when two guys are getting into a cage almost completely naked and fist fighting each other in front of millions of people, and you're saying, hey, no pressure. Yes, there's pressure. There's absolutely pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's okay. And that's the thing, that when people, you say, hey, don't put any pressure on yourself. Don't put any pressure on yourself. And then you start feeling pressure. You feel even more anxious because you're not supposed to feel pressure. Dude, load it up on me, man. Like, put the pressure, make the odds ridiculous. Put the pressure on me. Tell everybody that I'm going to perform. Tell everybody I'm going to lose. It doesn't matter to me. I show up and I'm going to fight no matter what the circumstances outside the cage are. It really doesn't bug me. Hundreds of years ago, you had to go hunt a woolly mammoth to feed your entire village. Like, that's pressure. That is, oh my goodness. 50 years ago, we had people flying across to another country to go fight in a world war and get blown up by tanks. That's pressure, like, they had to perform. There was plenty of pressure and they had to perform. Put the pressure on me. I will still perform.
Just a couple more things. You kind of mentioned how you heard Dan is maybe like healing a bit ahead of schedule. So is that kind of the guy you would want next for the win here? And like, hopefully, like, do you think you could get one more in? Or do you think that'll be like early next year at some point?
The rumor I heard was that he was ready to go in December. I'll be ready to go in December, barring no major injuries in this fight. Bobby Green is the only guy on my mind right now. I have to beat Bobby Green or nothing else comes to fruition. However, I would like to fight Dan Hooker at some point in the future. And if I could get one more in this year, that would be amazing. But I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, because we've talked about that for a while, is how you have a hard time getting fights. Like, now that you are number 10 and like maybe you move after this, do you think like it's gonna get any easier? Do you think the like higher you get up in the rankings, like it's just gonna be harder and harder for you to get fights?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be hard to get me fights. The problem is with my style, if you lose to me, you look terrible. Like at least with some of these other guys, when you fight them and you lose, you're in a banger, in a war. There's probably $50,000 on the line, and there's a little bit more out of it. If you fight me and you lose, it means you got rode for 15 minutes and probably choked in the second or third round. So a lot of guys don't want to risk that against me. I do think it will continue to be difficult to find me fights. However, I am hopeful that after this fight, I will be able to face another person in the top 10.
Just final thing, like all of a sudden, like you're getting pretty close to that title. Like, how far do you think you would be if you want to, like, if you beat Bobby here? Like, I feel like you'd be like only a couple fights away from that.
It's hard to say. You got guys like Alex Pereira who get title fights in 3 fights, and then you got guys like Beneil Dariush who go on like 15 fight win streaks and still don't get it. So I'm not thinking about that. I know what I have to do to get a belt. The only thing I have to do to get a belt is keep winning. So they put me in my first main event spot. I cannot disappoint them. I will go out there and I will perform, and I will hopefully get the first submission win over Bobby Green.
Well, great. I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, we're joined by UFC welterweight Alex Morono, who's back in action at the beginning of October. Alex, how's it going, man?
Good. I'm actually taking today and tomorrow off. It's like my mid-camp break. My body needs it. It's been a really good fight camp, and I got two more hard weeks after this one.
About 5 months since your last fight. Like, was this about the time frame you wanted, or is this a bit later than what you expected?
What's funny is I had tracked a bunch of like fighters and their like previous and then their current fights, and like 5 months is the welterweight cycle. So no, that was 100% as expected. If I could have fought sooner, I would have, but they got to get through all the fighters.
Your last fight, just quickly talk about it. Like, good performance over Tim Means, like getting the submission win? Like how happy were you with that to finish a guy like Tim?
Yeah, man, I have the utmost respect for Tim. Man, way back in the day, he was icing dudes in Legacy in Houston, and he always kind of like I always just thought very highly of him. I was very happy to get that win and get the finish.
And then this one, Joaquin Buckley, like, did this surprise you with the name, or like, who are you kind of expecting after that win over Tim?
I didn't know what to expect after Tim, but once Buckley went to welterweight, I just had a feeling we'd get matched eventually. So no, there was actually no surprise. And it's funny, like Buckley's like one of the first guys in a while. He's more like a modern fighter and not one of like the vets or OGs. And I always said like I'm down to fight these modern guys once I get the vets out of my system, and I'll fight the vets as long as possible. So no, this was expected, and he's a good martial artist. He's powerful. It'll be a fun, challenging fight for sure.
Do you, like his last fight obviously was a welterweight debut? Like looking at that, like do you think he should have been a welterweight then his entire UFC career?
Man, that's hard to say. I don't know how much the guy weighs or walks around at. That was a relatively fun fight. It was weird. You can tell Fialho, was a little apprehensive in that one. And but no, I remember watching that fight live and enjoying it. Kind of, that was one of those fights. To me, it didn't matter who won. It was just both guys were strikers and they were throwing down. But no, man, I had one interaction with Buckley in the past, and he was super cool. And as much fun as it is to really try to hype a fight up, he's a martial artist. I'm a martial artist. We're gonna go throw it in the octagon and get paid. So that's what we're gonna go do.
What have you made of his UFC run? Like 10 fights now, like he's 6-4. Like most of the fights are all pretty exciting. So like, what do you kind of made of his run?
I mean, yeah, he's an action fighter. He's probably got the most famous knockout in the UFC, which is pretty cool. Speaking of which, I don't know if you followed Impa Kasagane's record in the PFL, but he's fighting
for the belt. He's fighting $1 million.
He's 4-0. Dude, it's crazy. I mean, that's such a weird weight class swing. But no, man, Buckley's always fun to watch. He's like a lovable goofball. I mean, it's a fun fight. It's a tough fight too, man. I'm taking this one granted, I take every fight serious. I'm taking this one extra serious. Plus, we got like a crop of these OSU wrestlers at Fortis. 2 of them fighting actually this Sunday for Fury. And dude, the training's been good. It's been tough.
How did all those wrestlers get linked up to Fortis? Because like Kyle Crutchmer went out there, and then I saw like a bunch of other like really high level college wrestlers went out there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they knew Daniel Cormier pretty well, and I think he was their link or their guide. And yeah, they've been so much fun to work with. Jacoby Smith too, man. He's fighting on Sunday. He's a beast. Nick Piccinini, he's a 25er, but he's like a big old strong 25er. So yeah, it's just been a dynamite room. My boy Julius Holmes is headlining that show. Ramez Brahimov's back in the mix. He's been giving us some good rounds, and it's been fun.
What is it like having those like high level wrestlers in the gym? Because like Fortis has a lot of guys, but like that high level wrestler is kind of something that they was missing for a bit.
Yeah, if you've not trained with like high level wrestlers like that, it's weird. It's just the pacing's different. Like the effort is like constant. I mean, it's cool. It's definitely like after my first few weeks there, I trained hard. Worked hard. Had to recover. But like after that cycle a few times, man, I'm just like not getting tired in training at all anymore. It's nice.
And then who are kind of the main guys? Like obviously a ton of guys at Fortis, but who are kind of main guys you're working with for this camp?
Yeah, so I mean, just most of the sphere I named, we got a room full of just monstrous welterweights. Over at Fortis, you got Crutch, you got Jacoby, you got Julius Holmes. He'll be in the UFC soon. Contender next year is my guess. And then all my guys back in Houston. I got a crop of guys in my gym. I crossed them with guys at War. So I mean, I've not had a lack of training partners. A lot of middleweights and a lot of welterweights too, which has been really nice.
You've been a guy that's worked with like Uriah Hall, like Span, all those guys who are monster guys. So like even if Buckley is a bit bigger, like is that something you're just kind of used to now at this point in your career?
I mean, yeah, especially working with the welterweights. Thankfully, I don't have to work with the 85ers or 205ers that much, especially 205ers. Like I'm just not big enough to go with those dudes, which is nice. Like I'll do some technical rounds with them, but like when they're hitting the rounds, thankfully they're using the other big guys. But I mean, yeah, ever since maybe like 4 years ago, I just had like a really strong influx of welterweights and middleweights to work with, and it's been great. Zach Reese is another guy I work with in Houston all the time. He just got a win on the Contender and got signed to the UFC. So I mean, it's been cool.
For your camps, like, do you do it all at Fortis then, or do you like do the beginning at Houston, or like how do you kind of balance that?
So I travel every week. I actually drive up to Dallas in the beginning of each week, and then drive back home, and then like run my stuff back home, and just make that trip, back and forth for the entirety of fight camp. It's not so bad. It's about a 2.5-hour drive, and Dallas is a really nice city, and plus Fortis is like downtown Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
some nice places to stay. But no, I'd say it's a good setup. I enjoy the traveling.
With this one, like I think a lot of people expect it to kind of play out on the feet. Like, is that kind of how you think it's going to be out, or do you think it's going to hit them out at some point?
Like any fight, I kind of expect the fight to go everywhere. He shot for some takedowns. Like when he fought Razak, he used some wrestling. Even against Fialho, he had shot in a few times. I'm sure we'll end up clinching up and clashing up. It's funny, Sean Strickland actually said it the best. Everyone asks me why I don't grapple. And like, I wrestle and grapple so much. But he says, like, once you get the 4-ounce gloves on, the retard takes over and you just kind of bang it out. And I was like, he put it so eloquently that I couldn't describe for years. But I don't know, man. I mean, I'm going to be disciplined and just try to win the fight wherever it goes.
Joaquin's obviously known for his power. Like there has been some fights like he's slowed down as the fight kind of goes on, where I know with you, like you kind of like bringing these fights in. Like, do you just think with him, like the longer the fight goes, the better it'll be for you?
I mean, yeah, maybe so. He's actually had some decent second and third rounds in his career. Yeah, I know it's like a cliche answer, but I really try not to have any expectations. If I want to get a finish as soon as possible, and if I don't find the finish, then I want to win the decision. So, wherever the fight goes, I'm going to try to bring it to him.
Being at the Apex, is that a bit of a disappointment for you? Like the past couple have been in front of fans for you.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I love the Apex. I fought there 5 times in a row in COVID. I think I went 4-1 with the one loss being a decision where I didn't perform very well. I actually love the Apex, but man, I missed the crowd. When I heard this was at the Apex, I was like a little sad there wasn't going to be a crowd. But I'm super comfortable with Vegas, like super comfortable, traveling there. I have the PI to make weight and train in, so I mean, I'm not complaining.
Do you think the smaller octagon plays much of a role then in this fight?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know. Everyone knows I like to kind of move my feet and play that game, but I don't know. I can never really tell. Once the fight's on, I'm just laser focused in. I couldn't tell you the size of the cage.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
I think it'll be a fun fight. Everyone's saying it's going to be a banger, which is I love. Like most of the comments are like, "Oh, this fight's a banger. Expect violence." I just, fans should expect some violence. We're both going to be throwing down. So I mean, you ask me, I'm always looking to go for a knockout. So give you an expectation or a prediction, I'm winning by KO.
Do these kind of fights like maybe not motivate forever, but like add a bit in training where it's like this guy can knock you, like this guy's power, and like everyone's kind of expecting this fight to be pretty exciting?
So not really. It's funny when I'm like doing like tape study and like matchups for my guys, and like their guy, I'm like, hey, this guy's powerful. He's got knockout power, but that's about it. Like every fighter should have knockout power. If you're fighting and you don't have the ability to put guys away with one punch, then you really shouldn't be fighting. So necessarily, in my fight with Tim Means, he's like a one-shot sleeper too, but he's really experienced and really crafty. Not saying Joaquin's not, but like, you look at my last several opponents, like Simmelsberger's got that freaking death touch. Ponzinibbio's known for his striking. Same with Tim Means. So if anything, I'm like kind of grateful. I've been given like striker after striker after striker. It's made for a lot of really fun fights.
With this one, like you are a guy like on a nice little streak, like other than the Ponzinibbio fight, which was taken at short notice, and you're obviously winning that fight until you got caught. It's like, what do you think a win over Joaquin does see in this division? Like I know when we've talked, you've always said you don't really care about the rankings all that much, but like what do you think a win does for you?
That would put me at, I think, at welterweight 6 in a row. It's funny that Pons loss actually doesn't count on my welterweight streak because it was a fight at catchweight. It's technically an 85 fight, like a middleweight fight. So that was cool. But I mean, like anything, dude, getting that win bonus is what's most important to me. And if I get ranked or get some, high level opposition afterwards, then that'd be great. But I think it's right on par. I think Buckley's right up there with the top 15. Very dangerous, experienced now. So I mean, I think a win over Buckley is as valuable as a win over anyone in the top 15.
You fought a lot of those vets and like known guys in this division. So like, is there any other guys like that you just kind of want to fight before their careers are over?
I mean, really any of them. I don't want to really call anyone out because one, I got a fight booked, and two, like I respect a lot of these dudes. So, anyone in the UFC. But we also got like the new wave of like these young undefeated dudes like Michael Morales and Ian Gary. Like those would be fun fights. I couldn't tell you a fight I wouldn't want in the welterweight division.
For you, like I feel like you just kind of like going in there and fighting and like always with the challenge. Like I know when I talk to some guys, like they prefer like the known guys, the ranked guys, and they get a bit disappointed fighting like a guy with only a couple fights UFC. Like I guess for you, then it doesn't really matter for you. Like it just kind of whoever the UFC offers you, and you'll find a way to make it worthwhile.
No, man, I'm a martial artist. I love competing. And even like this fight in Vegas, like it's so routine. It's like I'm going in for like almost like a jiu-jitsu from back when I was like a blue belt, and it's cool because it's just like so calm, and so I'm just training my butt off. I'm gonna show up, put on the best performance I can, come back home, and then wash, rinse, and repeat. And no, I don't care. I get paid the same no matter what. So I mean, whoever.
And then with this one, like beginning of October, like, do you think you could get one more? And do you think this is probably it for you this year then?
I mean, if I'm going off that 5-month cycle, probably the last one of the year. But and again, I'm not overlooking anything. But I'd love to fight again in December. The more they let me fight, the more I'd fight. If I could fight every 2 months, I would. So I mean, just especially now I'm 33, I feel like I'm in like a true athletic prime. I'd say I got like 4 more like good, strong work years, and I want to make the most of them for sure.
And it's kind of crazy. It's like you're 2 fights away from 20 in the UFC, which is like pretty nuts that you've already fought that long in the UFC. Because like it seems like a while ago, like when you're fighting these guys, like you're the up and comer. Now all of a sudden, like you're kind of becoming this vet.
Now I'm the vet. I know my goal was actually 20 fights in the UFC, and I had to change my goals. Now it's 20 wins in the UFC, so I'm at win number 12. So I got some work to do before I can call it a career.
Just final thing, I know we talked about this before, like that commentary thing, like I know you do it on the radio scene, like I know you taped it a lot, like is that something you've talked to the UFC about, or like showing some interest into that? Because I feel like you'd be a perfect fit for that desk.
Yeah, they've mentioned it. One time I told them I didn't like traveling very much, which is true. Like if I had to choose between like running my gym, fighting, or doing commentary, I choose running my gym. Now that doesn't mean I wouldn't go call a few fights for the UFC if they had asked, but that's definitely something I'd be interested in. And man, I'll tell you, I love doing it for Fury. More than anything, I love sitting cage side and watching fights. And I'm like a sucker for technique statistics. And when I get to watch, 100 live fights a month, I can just see what moves work and what moves don't. It helps me teaching. It helps me apply techniques. Man, I really do enjoy the stats side of martial arts for sure.
Well, Alex, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again, man.
Hey, you got it, man. Take care.
All right, we're joined by UFC lightweight Ricky Glenn, who's back in action on October 7th. Ricky, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Just heading to practice, training hard.
Obviously, last fight didn't go your way. Like, not even a full 6 months later. Like, was this about the right time frame for you to return then?
Yeah, it feels good. I almost got back in there sooner. A couple of short notice fights came up. And one of them, the guy didn't accept. And then the other one, kind of same thing. Or the first one, I think I was still under suspension. And then another one, they just found someone else. But I threw my name out there for a few things, and it just didn't work out. And then this opportunity came up.
Your last fight, like, what do you take away from that one? Like, obviously your first fight in like a year and a half or whatever it was. Like, what do you kind of take away from that one?
Man, obviously it sucks. I mean, it's when you lose a fight like that, when you lose, period, like, I'd rather win and not get paid than lose and get a little bit of money. But, man, it just sucked. And I was bummed out for like a week. And I just, the best thing for me to do is just get back to training and work on my weaknesses. And obviously I was out for a little bit from that injury. And I don't know if that played a factor or what, but I was just a little too hesitant. I kind of got the guy's timing, and I just like kind of hesitated a little bit instead of throwing my strikes.
And then you get the call to face Drew Dober, who's like been a guy in the rankings for a long time. Like, how excited were you with this name?
Yeah, we were supposed to fight last year. It was last year, 2 weeks before I was supposed to fight him. I got injured and had to pull out and have surgery. That's what the layoff was from. But it's nice they won the matchup, and we made it work out, and here we are again.
Do you remember anything from that training camp? Like, is it a very similar training camp, or do you think because it's been so long, like, it is a bit different now, this fight?
Yeah, I remember. And, we're going to have – it's just like a lagging injury that I had, I think, even a year prior to getting it injured, completely injured, and have surgery on my leg. I had like a little strain, and then it kind of come and go. And then you're in training camp, so you got to go hard. You want to train right. But I wasn't letting my body feel like it needed, and ended up tearing something.
And with Drew, like, what have you made of his UFC run? Like, he's a fan favorite for a reason. Like, he likes to stand and trade with these guys. Like, what do you kind of made of his run?
Oh, for sure. He's been around for a minute, too. I remember fighting on the same card he made his debut on back in 2008, and he just climbed up the ranks ever since then, and he's been in the UFC for a while, has good performances, and he really wants to get in there and slug it out. He's a smart fighter, but he's definitely an athlete, and there's things I got to be careful of not hesitating, obviously, and getting hit.
And then with his last fight, like, he did get caught against Matt. Like, do you take anything away from that and what Matt was able to do against him?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. He just kind of stayed in there and met him with the strikes, and I'm sure he's made adjustments too on that fight, and he probably thinks, obviously I'm looking at all of his fights. I've been watching them for years. So there's things in each fight that we're looking for and watching out for.
And just being at the Apex, like, is that a bit disappointing as well, and just going back there for you?
No, but I'm ready to fight in an arena though. I want to fight in a sold out arena again. And the Apex still gets kind of loud for the little amount of people that are there, and it's a little more intimate. It's still a cool experience, of course, and a great opportunity. But hopefully the next one will be at a sold out arena.
And then the main event of your card is pretty intriguing because it's Grant Dawson and Bobby Green, who's a guy you fought, and obviously Bobby Green's a guy Drew just knocked out a year ago. What's that like to see that as the main event where you and Grant obviously had that close fight? I know you wanted that rematch, and then obviously Drew knocked out Bobby a year ago.
Yeah, I saw that. I did an interview right before they announced that, and the people I was talking with, they said, we didn't have a main event for the card, and if I'd be interested in being a main event, stuff of course, I've been training for championship rounds ever since I started. That's what it's all about, being a champion and being prepared for those longer rounds, high level fights. Hopefully someday I'll main event. But yeah, it's cool. Grant and Bobby, that's gonna be a good fight. So I see why they did that at the main event. It's gonna be a great fight. I'm not really sure who else is on the card, but maybe Drew and I will be co-main event. I hadn't seen the lineup yet.
Do you think you and Grant will ever have that rematch? Because it kind of seemed like you really wanted it after that fight. It wasn't so sure on him, and then obviously it's been a bit since that fight. Do you think that is a fight that's going to happen, or do you kind of think it might never happen?
I think it could. I got to put together a couple good performances, I think, first. Obviously get through Drew, and then even getting through Drew, I'm going to be in the talks of some big stuff, I think.
With this one, do you just imagine it plays out on the feet for the most part? I feel like most people, when they saw this matchup, are just kind of hoping it's a striking fight.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be more of a striking fight. But I could see him taking some shots too. If he's losing the fight, later in the fight, he might want to try to get on top or something.
Obviously, both of you guys have a ton of knockout power. So, how do you kind of see it playing out?
Man, I see him being smart, kind of trying to reel me in, maybe be a little more patient, and then as the fight goes on, I think we're obviously going to engage more. He's going to want to come in on me, but he's probably going to be smart right off the bat and look to stay sharp, of course. But at this level, it's the first person to make the mistake sometimes it costs them the fight.
I feel like for this one too, it's either going to be a fight of the night, or whoever wins is going to get a performance. I have a hard time seeing this fight not be one of the bonuses.
I know it, man. I'm feeling it too. I got a lot of energy for this fight. I want some redemption after losing the last one, of course. And then I made some improvements. There's always improvements made. There should be. But now I switched my camp up, and I'm pretty excited to reconnect with some of my old teammates and training partners, and Eric Koch and Ben Askren. Carson Carlson's giving me my corner as well. I started training with Pura Vida in Milwaukee, 360 Jiu-Jitsu in Milwaukee as well. So I did a little traveling and some cross training. I train out of Revolution MMA and Fitness in Cedar Rapids now, Iowa. It is.
What made you decide to do all that, cross training and everything?
I just had to switch it up. There's just some things that weren't working. I guess things I was lacking, I didn't really realize it at the time, and I just kind of needed to get some more looks. And then obviously I wanted to reconnect with some old teammates and coaches, and it's good to be around those guys as well. Obviously, they're great people. They pushed me to the next level, kind of people.
Sounds like you did a lot of cross trainings. Like, who is going to be in your corner then? Because you seem like you worked with quite a few people.
Yeah, so Carson Carlson, he's my jiu-jitsu coach out of Des Moines, Iowa, and then Eric Koch and Ben Askren.
What's that like seeing like Eric and Ben in the corner? Like, obviously they had some good careers, especially Ben, like being a champion all over. Like, just kind of that experience they've had in the fight game.
Yeah, they've been there, so they're going to be prepared to go to battle. It's, like it's kind of a walk in the park, so to speak, but they've been there. They fought championship fights. They've been around the world. I've trained with them for years, and so it's really good to reconnect with them. And, they're like, I don't know, they're just really good friends and teammates and obviously coaches.
Is this the first time Ben is cornering you?
No, the last time he cornered me, I think, was 2018. It's been a while. His last time he cornered me was when I fought Miles Jury, lost. But he had cornered me a few times before then, and same as Eric, just a few times.
Just a couple more things. Like, I know coming off that layoff, like, do you think like being able to like kind of stay consistent like this and get another fight, like you will be better? Like, do you think that layoff might have impacted you in that last fight? Now, like there won't be any ring rust and there is no like worry about that.
Yeah, maybe that was it. It was a weird injury, so I don't know. It was like I thought I was completely healed. I got a little sore, beforehand and during the fight camp. I had to be careful with stuff. And it's it's a lot stronger now. That leg in that area that I had injured, so it should be a lot better now.
Just two more things. Like, what do you think a win over Drew does for you and like puts you in this division? Like, obviously he's been a guy right near the rankings for a while.
Yeah, I mean, not even rankings, financially, it'll level my whole life up. It's going to level me up in the game big time.
And just final thing, like you get the win here, like what is kind of the goal then? Like, do you think this is it for probably you this year, and like maybe early next year you look to return?
Shoot, if they can give me if they give me something at the end of the year, would be great. That would be nice. That was my goal, to fight 2 more times this year. So, or early next year. I mean, whatever. I'm staying ready. Obviously, before this fight, I threw my name in the hat for some short notice fights, and they didn't work out. And now I had a really good training camp for this, but I was prepared to take those other fights on short notice. So I'm staying ready for the fights.
And well, just building off that, like it hopefully your next fight is in front of fans though, because you're the kind of guy that deserves to be in front of fans.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I do miss it. I miss that buzz in the air.
Well, Ricky, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this again, man.
Thank you, Cole. Take care, man.
All right, we're jumping UFC bandweight. Chris Gutierrez is back in action in October. Chris, how's it going, man?
Going good, man. It's going good.
Obviously, last fight didn't go away against Pedro, who was a kind of a veteran that's fought a lot of those top guys. Like, what do you kind of take away and learn from that fight? Because obviously, Pedro's a guy that I just kind of mentioned has been there with a lot of those champions or former champions.
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely it was a learning curve, Definitely took. I think what I learned the most out of that fight was that I belonged there. I did have to go back to the drawing boards to fix some things, and I did. And I plan to show that this time around.
And then fighting in October, like, was this about the time frame for you to return?
Yeah, injuries is always, that's always on the, you ride that fine line of, training hard and not getting injured, So, uh, just it's how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
And then with Montel Jackson, like, how familiar were you with him?
I mean, I've seen him fight before. I think we fought on the same night when I fought at Madison Square Garden against Frankie. So he fought that night as well, and I was actually watching that fight when he beat Aniyaya.
Mhm. And what have you made of his UFC run? Like, he's been on a nice little roll. Like, I know he lost his debut to Ricky Simone, and kind of since then has looked pretty good. Like, 4-fight winning streak. Like, hasn't fought like top guys like you have, but he's been beating the guys that they've been putting in front of him.
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete. I think I think he brings some good things to the octagon. But I got a job to do.
And a big thing with Montel is his size and reach. Like, he's a massive bantamweight. Like, he's like 5'10", like a 75.5-inch reach. Like, how do you kind of get ready to deal with that? Because it's not something you see in the bantamweight division.
Yeah. He is, one of the guys that stands out, right? Like I said, he's very, very long, very rangy. But I like that game too. I like to stay long, and that's he's gonna present some different things come October 7th. But I don't think he's fought anybody like me. And that's you can train for me, but it's different when you're in there with me. I present different little tactics and problems.
And just going back to the Apex, like, is that a big disappointment for you after getting like a couple fights in a row in arenas?
No, I mean, yeah, it would have been nice to be in a crowded place, but it is what it is. It's still a fight. We're both still in the UFC trying to make this climb, so it makes no difference where it's at. I don't care if it's in an alleyway.
And then there is no main event for this card yet. Like, so have they reached out maybe for you of like seeing if that's something, or is that still just like you guys are just a 3-round fight?
I don't know. You know, they don't tell us anything.
Because like looking at the card, like if they don't add something, like your fight kind of seems like the most logical one to be the main event. Like, because there is no really other top fight with like a top 15 guy on the card.
Wow,
Or like, because like right now they only list your fight, Drew Dober's fight, and then Joe Pfeiffer's fight on the main card, and that's all they have. So like, if they don't add anything, like it's got to be like one of those 3 fights.
yeah, the 3 fights. Well, they need to get to it because they haven't told us anything.
With Montel, like he's obviously a very good striker, has a lot of power in his hands. Like I know for you, like you like playing that game with the striking as well. So like, do you just imagine this plays out on feet, or do you think it hits the mat at some point?
At this point in our career, man, you just got to be ready wherever. He might dink me and it's time to wrestle. I might dink him and it's time for him to wrestle, So, that's a surprise for everybody else. We've been working very extensively and just adding tools and refining some things. You know what I mean? So, I'm excited.
Who are kind of the main guys you're working with? Like obviously Jonathan is the week or two after you, so like that's probably good for you getting in there with him a lot. But like who are kind of the main guys we're working with?
Yeah, we got like John DeJesus, Brandon Royval. He's staying ready for his flyweight championship whenever they decide to give him the date. Yeah, of course, Jonathan, Yusuf. Yeah, I said John DeJesus already. Yeah. Got a good crew of people, working to be solid wherever the fight goes.
And I guess Alex Hernandez is on the card as well. Like,
Alex Hernandez is on the card as well.
Is that nice having a teammate on the card? Just kind of help fight week kind of go by a bit easier.
Yeah, of course. Alex is a really cool guy. I like him, so it definitely will have some good vibes going in.
Factory X obviously has a ton of bandweights and featherweights. So do you bring in anyone else to kind of like mimic Montel in his size, or do you think you just have enough bodies there to Like even if you have to fight, or even if you have to train with guys like above weight classes than you?
Yeah, I mean, we got enough guys. We got 2 or 3 guys here that can mimic him. So, yeah.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Like I think to a lot of fans, like they're imagining this one to be a pretty exciting fight with the way your two styles are.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The question was, how do I see the fight
Yeah.
going out? I don't know. I've never been that. It's gonna be fun though. It's gonna be crazy. I know that.
With these fights, like, do you ever like focus on getting a finish? Do you think that just like kind of happens when you fight? Like it's just kind of the openings with your leg kicks and your strike. It just kind of eventually something happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it kind of goes back to like I said how I grew up. Anytime I've always tried to force something. Anytime I've always like try to seek something out. I've never gotten the results. I've never. But when I just let it materialize, when I just let it happen, it just, I can find things a lot easier and a lot better. So, I'm going to be searching, for the kill. But as far as like, just going all out for the knockout or something in particular, no, I just let it flow and let it happen. Whatever happens is going to happen.
And then you go out there and beat Montel. Like, what do you think that does for you? Like, you obviously are fighting a guy behind you in the rankings. Like, do you imagine it's just kind of right back to where you were before that loss to Pedro?
Yeah, I believe it kind of like tells people like, it kind of tells the promotion and everything like, yo, like I'm here for a reason. Let's get back on track let's go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not go backwards,
I was looking at your career too. You've never lost 2 in a row. Like, how do you think how do you think that happens? Like, is there just like a change in mindset for you after a loss, like the way you fight?
Yeah, I was on like 8, 9 fights unbeaten. It's a lot of it was me. I lost focus in a way. You're coming off 8 or 9, victories. You're thinking you're doing everything good, and it was definitely an eye opener, an experience gainer, and like I said, I just look forward to showcasing the growth that I've had since then.
I imagine Mark will be in your corner. Who else is going to be in the corner?
Yes, sir. Coach Mark definitely will be there, and still working on the other ones. Still got some things we gotta lay out.
Then with this one, like fighting in early October, do you think this is probably it for you this year? Are you hoping you can maybe squeeze in another fight?
I mean, we'll see how this fight goes. If I can get in there, and grab him and he go down and he lets me choke him out, or he lets me punch him and he wants to fall, then I'm sure I can compete again. But we'll see. We'll have to see how this fight plays out.
And then for you, like, were you surprised to see Sean O'Malley beat Sterling, become the champion? Like, obviously that was a big talking point for your division.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think O'Malley presents some really good skill sets. I think he's I think they underestimate him in the kickboxing department. No, I didn't. Aljamain's good, but he's got to grab you, and he needed that distance, that space, and he was able to make it count.
Just final thing, like, say this is the last fight for you this year. Like, what is kind of the goal then for you next year? Like, this fight kind of sets you up to have a pretty big year next year as well.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm gonna do everything in my power to win. I'm gonna get my hand raised, and then next year, the plan is to keep steamrolling forward. Whatever comes my way, I'll deal with it, and it's just the way I approach life.
Well, Chris, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.